Welcome back to Rare CoinX PRO. Today we are exploring one of the most counterintuitive and genuinely astonishing stories in the entire world of American coin collecting, the survival paradox. The four Lincoln Wheat Pennies we are examining today, the 1940, 1941, 1942, and 1944 no-mint mark Philadelphia issues, were each produced in the hundreds of millions or even billions. They were everywhere. They filled every till, every pocket, every piggy bank in America. And yet today, finding a truly pristine, gem-quality example of any one of them with full original red copper color is a genuinely rare and exciting numismatic event that commands auction prices that most people would simply not believe. Billions made. Almost none survived in perfect condition. That is the survival paradox. And by the end of today's video, you will understand exactly why it happens, exactly what it means for your own coin jars and old collections, and exactly what these four coins are worth when they beat the odds and survive beautifully. Stay with us, because every single section of today's video has a number that will genuinely stop you in your tracks. Let's start with our first coin, the 1940 Lincoln Wheat Penny, no mint mark. The survival paradox begins here, with a coin whose production story sets the stage for everything that follows. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 586,810,000 pennies in 1940, the Denver Mint produced about 81,390,000 pennies, and the San Francisco Mint produced around 112,940,000. Philadelphia's 586 million coins, a genuinely staggering production figure that tells you everything about the commercial energy of an America pulling itself out of the Great Depression and heading toward the industrial mobilization of the coming war years. Now here is where the survival paradox hits for the very first time, and it hits hard. Despite a massive 586.8 million mintage, PCGS estimates only about 12,000 survive in collectible condition. Roughly half qualify as gem quality at MS65 or above. Read that again. 586 million coins produced. 12,000 survivors in collectible condition. 6,000 in gem quality or above. The survival rate of the 1940 Philadelphia cent in collectible condition is approximately 0.002%, 0.002% of the original mintage. That number is not a rounding error. That is the survival paradox in its most dramatic numerical form, and it explains everything about why gem-quality wheat pennies from this era command auction prices that seem impossible for a 1-cent coin. The reason so few survive is straightforward and deeply human. Coins fell into large communal bins at every stage of production and struck each other constantly, creating the microscopic contact marks that eliminate gems at every production stage. Then they went into tills and pockets and spent years being handled, dropped, and passed between thousands of hands. The copper alloy, traditional bronze consisting of 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, tones and oxidizes with every exposure to air and moisture. By the time most 1940 Philadelphia cents reached the condition we would today call circulated, the gem quality examples had already become something genuinely extraordinary. The proof dimension adds yet another layer of historical significance. The Philadelphia Mint struck only 15,872 proof pennies in 1940, making this by far the rarest variety of the year. 15,872 proof coins versus 586 million circulation strikes, a ratio that makes the 1940 proof Lincoln cent one of the most genuinely scarce collector pieces in the entire pre-war wheat penny world. The 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny is composed of traditional bronze, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, at 3.11 grams and 19 millimeters diameter with a plain edge. The three color designations define the survival hierarchy. Red at 95% or more original copper brilliance commands the highest premiums, red-brown commands intermediate values, and brown represents base values. Collectors prize 1940 Philadelphia pennies that retain their original bright red luster, as most have toned to brown over the decades. The color premium is dramatic. A coin in MS65 brown might sell for $5 to $10, while the same coin in MS65 red commands many times that figure at AS of 2026, Auction demand for red-designated coins in high mint state grades remains at an all-time high. The survival paradox drives collector demand with a force that no amount of high mintage can diminish, precisely because so few examples survived. The ones that did are genuinely precious. Errors like DDO, RPM, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and wrong planchet strikes also boost value significantly, giving specialist collectors additional dimensions of excitement beyond the core condition rarity story. Most circulated 1940 wheat pennies are worth about $70,000 to $81,000. Common uncirculated examples are often around $152,000 to $210,000 or more. At the premium end, the survival paradox reveals its full power. The record auction price for this variety reached $514,950 for a stunning MS-68 example with full original red color. From 586 million minted, to a 0.002% survival rate in collectible condition, to a single gem example commanding $714,950 at auction. That is the survival paradox in its most complete and compelling expression, and it is why every old coin jar in America deserves a careful second look. First, always assess color in natural daylight. The survival paradox makes full red color the single most important factor in determining value, and a 1940 Philadelphia cent that has beaten the odds and retained its original copper brilliance after over 8 decades is a genuinely exceptional find. Second, examine Lincoln's cheekbone, the hair above the ear, and the bow tie at the base of the portrait as your primary wear indicators. All three should show absolutely zero where on a genuine uncirculated example. Third, look for the proof coins. With just 15,872 produced, their mirror-like fields and frosted designs make them immediately distinctive from standard circulation strikes, and finding one is a discovery that rewards any collector's patience. Fourth, never clean your coins. Cleaning permanently destroys the natural surfaces that the survival paradox has preserved and reduces value far more dramatically than any natural toning. And fifth, for any example grading MS-65RD or higher, or any potential proof, professional PCGS or NGC certification is strongly recommended. Now let's move on to our second coin, the 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny, no mint mark. The survival paradox reaches a new dimension with the 1941 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny, because this coin carries a production record that makes the 1940 figure seem almost modest by comparison, while simultaneously producing gem survivors so scarce at the very top grades that they command 5-figure auction prices. The 1941 Lincoln Wheat Penny holds a quiet record in American coinage. It was the first United States coin of any denomination to exceed 1 billion pieces in total production across all mints combined. The Philadelphia Mint's contribution to that billion-plus total was remarkable. A 1941 penny graded MS-68 red by PCGS sold for over $15,600 at heritage auctions. The survival paradox for the 1941 Philadelphia cent operates with full force across every grade level. The 1941 Lincoln cent's massive mintage ensures affordability in circulated and lower mint state grades, but the coin is a conditional rarity above MS-67RD, with populations in the single digits for top tiers. Single digits at MS-67RD from a coin that was the first American denomination to exceed 1 billion in total production. The survival paradox has never been more clearly expressed. The historical context of the 1941 coin adds an emotional layer to the survival story that makes it uniquely resonant. The 1941 wheat penny was one of the last copper cents struck before World War II changed U.S. coinage for good. Pearl Harbor hit on December 7, 1941, and within 2 years the copper shortage forced the mint to stamp pennies on zinc-plated steel planchets. The pennies struck in Philadelphia in 1941 were produced both before and after that fateful December morning, making every 1941 no mint mark cent a literal coin of transition, spanning the boundary between peacetime and war in a single year's production. And the ones that survived in gem condition survived through 8 decades of American history, through the war itself, through the post-war boom, through every decade since, to reach today's collector market as genuine numismatic prizes. The proof dimension of the 1941 cent is extraordinary. In addition to the coins intended for circulation, Philadelphia also produced 21,100 proof coins in 1941. These were made specifically for collectors using polished dies and planchets, resulting in a mirror-like finish and incredible detail. A high-quality proof coin can be worth between $50 and $500 depending on the level of cameo contrast. The auction record for a proof-graded PR67 was $28,200 in 2013 at Heritage Auctions. The error dimension adds further specialist excitement. A 1941 double die obverse in MS67 red grade has sold for approximately $35,000 at the 1941 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny is composed of traditional bronze, 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, at 3.11 grams and 19 millimeters. The color premium is dramatic and consistent across all grade levels. A 1941 penny in MS65 brown might sell for $4 to $6. The same coin in MS65 red sells for $18 to $30. At MS67, a brown coin might bring $25, while a red coin can bring $150 to $400. These figures make the survival paradox visible in pricing. Color preservation is the clearest measure of how completely a coin beat the odds of 8 decades of existence. The top slot for 1941 proof sales belongs to a PR67 red proof that brought $28,200 at Heritage Auctions in November 2013. Grade is everything here. If you're buying, stick with PCGS or NGC slabbed coins above MS65. That's where the sweet spot is between what you pay and what the coin can do long-term. The Pearl Harbor year context gives this coin an emotional dimension that resonates with collectors across every generation. The first billion coin year of American coinage, struck on either side of the day that changed America forever. The 1941 Wheat Penny with no mint mark is worth anywhere from $55,000 in worn condition to over $75,000 in pristine mint state. In MS65 RD, examples command $118,000 to $230,000. A 1941 penny graded MS68 red by PCGS sold for over $315,600 at Heritage Auctions. The proof record stands at $528,200 for a PR67 red at Heritage Auctions in November 2013. And the double die obverse variety carries its own extraordinary premium. A 1941 double die obverse in MS67 red grade has sold for approximately $635,000. First, always examine Liberty and In God We Trust under 10x magnification for the double die obverse variety. Genuine hub doubling shows a clear shadow or shelf of extra metal on multiple letters consistently, and a confirmed DDO from the Pearl Harbor year is worth up to $35,000. Second, reflect on the survival paradox when handling any 1941 cent. A coin from the first American denomination to exceed 1 billion in total production now survives in single-digit populations at MS67 RD. Third, look for the 21,100 proof coins with their mirror-like surfaces. The PR67 record of $28,200 demonstrates what these achieve when they survive in the finest condition. Fourth, assess color in natural daylight. The red designation is the proof that a coin survived the survival paradox with full original brilliance. And fifth, professional PCGS or NGC certification is essential for any example grading MS65 RD or higher. Next, let's take a look at our third coin, the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny, no mint mark. The survival paradox takes on its most historically charged form with the 1942 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny, because this coin is not just a high mintage issue whose gem survivors are scarce. It is the last Lincoln cent ever struck in traditional bronze composition, the closing chapter of the 33-year recipe that had defined the American penny since 1909, and the final proof wheat penny before an 8-year wartime gap that made the 1942 proof the rarest of all, the last proof before the lights went out on the program for nearly a decade. What makes the 1942 penny historically important is its composition. The standard bronze alloy of 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc had been used for Lincoln cents since the series debuted in 1909. After 33 years of this recipe, The 1942 issue was the last. In early 1943, the mint switched to zinc-coated steel planchets for penny production. Every 1942 no-mint mark penny that survived in gem-red condition beat not just the survival paradox of 8 decades of existence. It preserved the last expression of a 33-year material tradition in the most perfect possible state. That is why finding a gem-red 1942 Philadelphia cent carries a weight of historical significance that no other wheat penny date quite matches. The Philadelphia Mint produced 657,796,000 wheat pennies in 1942, making this the most common variety of the year. PCGS identifies it as a common coin overall, though it becomes tougher in the highest mint state grades. An MS-68 specimen sold at an auction in 2021 for $3,960 holds the price record for this variant. At MS-67 Plus Red, only 68 PCGS certified specimens exist, from 657 million minted. The survival rate at this grade level is so low that it can barely be expressed as a percentage. The proof dimension of the 1942 cent is the most extraordinary in today's entire video. Philadelphia struck just 32,600 proof specimens in 1942, then proof production shut down until 1950 because of the war. This means the 1942 proof Lincoln cent is the last proof wheat penny produced before an 8-year wartime gap. The highest auction sale found overall is $17,625 for a 1942 proof Lincoln cent graded NGC PR 67, sold by Heritage Auctions in 2014. That the error landscape adds further specialist excitement. In one of the more dramatic mint errors documented for this year, at least one 1942 Lincoln cent was struck on a planchet intended for an Ecuador 20 centavos coin. These wrong planchet errors are extraordinarily rare and have been certified by NGC. Confirmed examples are worth $5,000 or more. The 1942 issue was the last year to use the standard bronze alloy of 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc that had been used for Lincoln cents since 1909. Weight 3.11 grams. Diameter 19 millimeters, plain edge. The color premium at the very top grades is remarkable. At MS-67 Plus Red, only 68 PCGS certified specimens exist, worth roughly $150 to $3,760 depending on the sale. The 1942 proof in deep cameo condition is among the most sought-after proof wheat cents ever produced. The last traditional bronze year status drives collector demand with a narrative power that date and mint mark set builders, composition collectors, and proof specialists all respond to simultaneously. Most collectors don't realize this was the last proof penny before an 8-year gap. Philadelphia struck just 32,600 proof specimens in 1942, then proof production shut down until 1950 because of the war. That last proof before the war gap status gives the 1942 proof Lincoln cent an emotional and historical resonance that makes it one of the most compelling proof pieces in the entire wheat penny series. A 1942 wheat penny value is about $40,000 to $61,000 in circulated condition in 2026. Common uncirculated examples typically range from about $110,000 to $180,000 or more. An MS-68 specimen sold at auction in 2021 for $323,960. The highest auction sale found overall is $617,625 for a 1942 proof Lincoln cent graded NGC PR 67, sold by Heritage Auctions in 2014. 4 wrong planchet errors struck on Ecuador centavos blanks. Confirmed examples are worth $775,000 or more. First, always lead with the last traditional bronze year narrative. The survival paradox is most emotionally powerful when you know that the coins that survived in gem-red condition preserved the final expression of a 33-year material tradition in perfect original state. Second, build the pair display with a 1943 steel cent. Placing the 1942 bronze and the 1943 steel side by side makes the wartime composition change visible, tangible, and immediately compelling. Third, look for the proof issue. The 32,600 coin mintage and the last proof before the year gap status make every 1942 proof Lincoln cent a piece of genuine numismatic history. Fourth, Weigh any 1942 cent that looks slightly different. A wrong planchet error on an Ecuador centavos blank is an extraordinary rarity worth $5,000 or more. And fifth, professional certification is essential for any MS-65 RD or higher example. And now, let's take a look at our fourth and final coin, the 1944 Lincoln Wheat Penny, no mint mark. The survival paradox reaches its most extreme and dramatic expression with our final coin today, and the 1944 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny delivers a story that takes everything we have discussed across this entire video and amplifies it to a level that genuinely challenges belief. Philadelphia produced roughly 1,435,400,000 pennies in 1944, the most common variety of the year. Over 1,435,000,000 coins from Philadelphia alone. That is the highest production figure of any coin in today's video by an enormous margin. And yet what happens to the survival paradox when you apply it to 1.4 billion coins is one of the most extraordinary stories in American numismatics. The 1944 MS-68 red bronze penny from Philadelphia carries an estimated price of $13,000. You won't find that grade from Denver or San Francisco. They just don't come that nice. From 1.4 billion minted, to an estimated price of $13,000 for an MS-68 red example. The survival paradox in the 1944 Philadelphia cent is operating at a scale that is almost incomprehensible. The coin that was produced more abundantly than almost any other in the wheat series becomes, at the very top of the grading spectrum, a genuinely precious and highly valued numismatic object. The composition story of the 1944 cent adds a layer of historical drama that makes the survival of pristine examples even more remarkable. In 1944, the mint went back to copper but dropped tin from the alloy. That made the 1944 cent 95% copper and 5% zinc, technically brass, not the traditional bronze recipe. And the source of that brass was even more remarkable. The mint used recycled brass shell casings from military ammunition. Every 1944 Philadelphia cent was made from the same brass as spent wartime ammunition, a direct and physical connection to the war effort. The gem red examples that survived 8 decades of existence are preserving the original brilliance of that wartime brass in a way that the survival paradox makes genuinely extraordinary. Now here is the error story that completes today's video with one of the most stunning revelations in the entire Lincoln cent series. The headliner is the 1944 steel MS-66, which hammered at $408,000 in 2021. That crushed its previous record of $373,750. Why so insane? Only about 30 steel pennies from 1944 exist across all 3 mints. Philadelphia produced roughly 25 to 30 of the accidental 1944 steel cents, struck on leftover 1943 zinc-plated steel planchets, and PCGS has certified only 7 above MS-60. The auction record for a 1944 steel cent from the Philadelphia Mint was $180,000. The survival paradox of the standard 1944 cent, extraordinary at the gem grade level, is nothing compared to the survival reality of the steel cent era. 25 to 30 Philadelphia steel cents from a mintage of 1.4 billion standard coins. A survival rate so low that it cannot meaningfully be expressed as a fraction. The standard 1944 no mint mark Lincoln Wheat Penny is composed of shell case brass, 95% copper and 5% zinc, no tin, at 3.11 grams and 19 millimeters. The magnet test is the most critical first step with any 1944 cent. A genuine standard example should show absolutely zero magnetic response. A magnetic 1944 cent weighing approximately 2.70 to 2.75 grams may be a rare steel planchet error and requires professional authentication. That magnet test is the single most important physical action any collector can perform on a 1944 wheat penny, because the difference between a standard coin and the steel error is the difference between an ordinary wartime cent and a coin worth $180,000. The collector demand for the 1944 no mint mark operates on 2 levels that could not be more different. Standard examples are common and affordable at every circulated grade. But the survival paradox at gem grade level creates meaningful specialist demand for pristine red examples. And the steal cent error creates an entirely separate category of intense and passionate collector interest that drives auction prices to levels that no other wheat penny error except the 1955 Philadelphia DDO can match. The steal error struck on leftover 1943 planchets represents the pinnacle, with authenticated examples selling for $75,000 to over $400,000 depending on mint and grade. Standard circulated examples are worth $35,000 to $70,000. Uncirculated examples range from $110,000 to $170,000 in lower grades. A few standouts exist in top pop territory. The 1944 MS-68 red bronze penny from Philadelphia carries an estimated price of $213,000. For the steal cent error, the auction record for a 1944 steal cent from the Philadelphia Mint was $480,000, and the 1944 S steal example set the all-time record at $608,000 in 2021. The 1944 D/S over mint mark variety, where traces of an underlying S remain under 10x magnification inside the D mint mark, was listed at nearly $729,000 in May 2025. First and most critically, test every 1944 no mint mark penny with a magnet immediately. Zero magnetic response confirms the standard shell case brass composition. Any magnetic response from a 1944 no mint mark penny is a potential steal cent error. Stop everything and take it to a professional authenticator. Second, weigh any magnetic 1944 cent precisely. A magnetic 1944 cent weighing approximately 2.70 to 2.75 grams may be a rare steal planchet error that the standard 3.11 gram brass coin would never produce. Third, reflect on the survival paradox with full force when examining any 1944 Philadelphia cent. From 1.4 billion coins, only a handful survived in MS-68 red condition, and those that did are worth $13,000. Fourth, never clean your coins. The wartime shell case brass of the 1944 cent is particularly sensitive to surface alteration, and cleaning permanently destroys the original brilliance that makes gem survivors so valuable. And fifth, for any coin that fails the magnet test, or any example grading MS-65RD or higher, immediate professional PCGS or NGC certification is absolutely essential, because the difference between an ordinary 1944 cent and a genuinely life-changing discovery is measured in milligrams of weight and the response of a simple magnet. As we have seen today, the survival paradox is the most powerful and consistently surprising force in the entire world of Lincoln wheat penny collecting, and these 4 Philadelphia no mint mark coins demonstrate it in its most extreme and dramatic forms. The 1940 penny was produced in 586 million examples at Philadelphia alone, yet PCGS estimates only 12,000 survive in collectible condition, a survival rate of 0.002%, and the finest known MS-68 red example commanded $14,950 at auction. The 1941 penny made history as the first American coin denomination to exceed 1 billion in total production, yet it is a conditional rarity in single-digit populations above MS-67RD, and a proof that survived in the finest condition sold for $28,200, while a double die obverse in gem red grade reached $35,000. The 1942 penny carried the traditional bronze recipe for the very last time after 33 years of continuous use, closing that chapter with a last proof issue of just 32,600 pieces before an 8-year wartime gap, and that final proof sold for $17,625. And the 1944 penny was produced in over 1.4 billion examples, the most abundant coin in today's video, yet the steal cent error that hides within that enormous production run commands $180,000 for a Philadelphia example and $408,000 for the San Francisco issue, while a standard gem MS-68 red survivor commands $13,000 from a mintage that should have made every possible grade abundant. Billions made. Almost none survived. That is the survival paradox, and it is why every old penny in your collection deserves a careful, informed, and hopeful second look. Whether you are just beginning your coin collecting journey or you have been collecting for years, always check your old coin jars, your inherited collections, and your family's forgotten pennies. because you never know when you might discover a hidden treasure. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another exciting coin video from Rare CoinX PRO. Share this video with your fellow collectors and we will see you in the next one. Happy collecting!